Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're like most of our listeners, you're probably looking for two things.
Hmm.
First, the absolute core knowledge you need, and second, well, the most efficient, actionable way to get it.
Exactly. We're all drowning in information.
We really are. That feeling of information overload is just, it's constant. You've got thousands of articles, countless tutorials, but no real clear path forward.
Just a lot of noise.
A lot of noise. So today, we're focusing all that energy onto one specific, really universal challenge: unlocking English listening comprehension.
A huge one for so many people.
It is. We've taken a deep look at a range of sources, all focused on practical, simple techniques. Think of it like a roadmap you can use, really, no matter what your current level is.
And that's the key part, right? This isn't about complex grammar drills or memorizing endless vocabulary lists.
No, not at all. It's about the cognitive shortcuts, the habit shifts that, just make spoken English click.
And this is such an important mission because, language learning, and especially that listening part, it can feel so overwhelming.
Totally.
Learners just feel this immense pressure to keep up,
Yeah.
To understand everything a native speaker says instantly.
Right. As if that's even realistic from the get-go.
It's not. And the beauty of the material we gathered is that it systematically, step by step, removes that pressure. It's a clear roadmap that's all about reducing complexity.
Okay.
It focuses on these small, repeatable actions that actually build lasting skills rather than, demanding these grueling hours-long study sessions that just lead to burnout.
That structural framework you mentioned, that's absolutely key. I think people often equate learning with huge textbooks and chaining yourself to a desk for hours, and it never lasts. But the overall theme we found in the sources is the complete opposite. It frames listening improvement as what was the phrase? A slow, steady climb.
A slow, steady climb, not a frantic sprint to the finish line.
I love that. Not a sprint.
Precisely. The goal here is sustainability. What we're aiming for is maximized comprehension, but with minimum stress.
Yeah, that sounds like the dream.
It is. And by adopting these simple foundational habits, you're not trying to conquer the entire language in a week. You're setting up a system where, progress is just inevitable.
Because the actions themselves are easy to repeat.
Exactly. We're trading that high-stress, low-frequency cram session for a low-stress, high-frequency immersion.
Low stress, high frequency. That's an ideal mantra for learning any skill.
It really is.
Let's unpack this. We've distilled 10 really powerful techniques from the sources. We're going to start with the foundational habits, the ones that govern how and when you listen.
The scaffolding.
The scaffolding, perfect. Before we even get into the specifics of what you should be doing while you listen. So our first section is all about building that foundation, a really robust, non-negotiable one. Before we can talk about exercises, we have to address the habits of practice.
The structure.
Yes. The sources are so clear on this. How you listen is absolutely as important as what you listen to.
It dictates everything. It dictates your success. You can have the most expensive, sophisticated learning software in the world, but if your daily habits are inconsistent or stressful, the learning just won't stick.
It's built on sand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to start with the bedrock principle. Tip 1.
Okay, tip 1. Listen a little every day. And the core advice here is so beautifully attainable. Even just 10 minutes a day is profoundly effective.
It is.
And I think for a lot of us, that number, 10 minutes, it feels almost too small. Like it couldn't possibly be meaningful.
Right. It feels like you're cheating, but it's the consistency, not the duration, that's doing the heavy lifting here.
Okay.
The source material uses this fantastic analogy. Learning is like plants drinking water, small amounts, but often.
I like that.
And that taps directly into the science of how your brain actually changes, the whole process of neuroplasticity.
Okay, so let's delve deeper into that. The neuroplasticity aspect. Why is 10 minutes every single day so much better than, say, cramming for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon? Can you break down the mechanics for us?
Yeah, for sure. Think of it. Think of learning a language like trying to grow a garden in your brain.
Okay.
If you just flood that garden with a fire hose of water once a week for 2 hours, most of that water is just going to run off. It doesn't soak in. And the young roots, they get stressed out by this sudden, overwhelming burden.
Right, they can't absorb it all.
They can't. But if you give them a small, steady dose of water every single day, that 10 minutes, the roots have time to absorb it, to grow stronger, deeper.
So in the brain, those roots are the synaptic connections.
Exactly. Those are the roots. When you listen to English for 10 minutes, you activate specific neural circuits, the ones responsible for separating sounds, for retrieving vocabulary.
Third backstage work.
All of it. And when you stop, your brain doesn't just stop working on it. For the rest of the day, and critically, while you sleep, the process of memory consolidation kicks in.
So the brain is using the time between the practice sessions to actually solidify the connections. It's not the session itself, it's the aftermath.
The aftermath is where the magic happens.
Exactly.
If you try to force feed your brain 2 hours of dense material at once, you just hit cognitive fatigue.
I've definitely felt that. Your brain just feels full.
It's full. Its resources are all spent just trying to keep up with this incoming flood of information. It's a state of really inefficient processing. You're essentially just cycling data through your short-term memory without giving the brain the necessary downtime for what's called synaptic pruning and consolidation.
Which is what, exactly?
It's basically the brain deciding which connections are important enough to keep and strengthen into long-term memory and which ones were just noise.
So that daily 10 minutes.
That frequent low-dose exposure signals to your brain, hey, pay attention, this sound pattern, this word. This is important because I see it every day. It tells the brain to build a resilient, permanent neural pathway for it. And it does all that without the stress fatigue that kills motivation.
That is a huge relief for anyone, juggling a demanding schedule or family or life. It validates prioritizing that little bit of consistency over these huge, daunting blocks of time.
It's a total game changer for your mindset.
Okay, so that brings us to the content itself. This is tip 2. Choose content you enjoy. The sources say, very simply, if you like the topic, your ears stay awake.
And this moves us from the structural habit to the motivational habit. Intrinsic motivation. It's the fuel for any kind of sustainable learning.
It has to be.
If the content feels like mandatory homework, if it's difficult and it's boring, you create this immediate mental resistance. The source material is adamant about this. Choose videos, stories, podcasts that feel genuinely fun to you.
I think we have all been there, forcing ourselves to listen to some dry academic lecture because we think we should.
Oh, absolutely. The shoulds are killers.
So what's actually happening physiologically when we're bored or resistant like that?
Well, when you're bored, your cognitive resources are just not being allocated efficiently. Part of your brain is constantly fighting the urge to wander off. Check your phone, think about what's for dinner.
Guilty.
We all are. And those resources that are busy wandering off, they're not processing the auditory input. And even more than that, the resistance itself creates tension in your body.
Okay.
And tension, as we are going to talk about a lot more later, is the absolute enemy of comprehension. When you're bored or stressed, you subconsciously tense up your shoulders, your jaw, and your ability to absorb the natural flow and rhythm of the language just plummets.
So your body is literally closing itself off.
It is. But conversely, if you're genuinely interested, say, you absolutely love watching historical documentaries or you follow a specific cooking channel on YouTube.
Right.
Your attention is freely given. You're not forcing it. You're already primed to anticipate information, which means your brain is actively looking for meaning. It reduces the burden of just identifying sounds.
You're leaning in.
You're leaning in. Choosing content for pleasure turns a perceived obligation into entertainment. It guarantees your effort is sustainable, and it makes hitting that 10-minute daily target feel easy, not like a chore.
That's the pivot right there, from obligation to desire. You want to know what happens next in the story, and the language acquisition just kind of happens as a side effect.
Just kind of learning.
It really is. So once we have that enjoyable content, the third tip is one that's often the hardest for high achievers to accept. It feels like admitting failure. And that's tip 3, slow the audio down.
It is so not failure, it's optimization. This is probably the single most powerful technical tool available to a listener who's struggling.
Okay.
The advice is really firm on this. Use the platform settings. YouTube, podcast players, they all have it. Try 0.75x speed, or even 0.5x if you need to. The core message is crystal clear. Slow is not wrong. Slow helps you grow.
Okay, but wait a minute. Let me push back on that a little. If I get used to listening to slowed down audio, aren't I just training my ear for a pace that doesn't actually exist in the real world?
That's a great question.
How does a learner ever transition to native speed if they get really comfortable at 0.75x? That feels like a practical roadblock.
It's a fantastic and a really necessary question because that fear of dependency, it stops so many learners from using this tool effectively.
Right.
The key is to understand why we're slowing it down. It's not the end goal. It's a training tool. See, when native English speakers talk, they don't say things cleanly, word by word.
Not at all.
They engage in this massive sound reduction and linking. Linguists call it elision. For example, I am going to go to the store almost always becomes, I'm going to go to the store.
Oh, I should have gone
I should have gone, exactly. So when a learner hears, I should have gone at full native speed, their brain is struggling with two huge tasks at the same time.
Okay, what are they?
First, just segmenting that wall of sound into individual recognizable phones, the little units of sound. And second, matching those sounds to the written words they already know in their head, like should, have, and gone.
So if the speed is too fast, the brain is just completely overwhelmed. It can't match the spoken form to the written form it expects.
Exactly. The system crashes. But when you slow the audio down to 0.75x, you're buying your brain precious microseconds to perform those crucial segmentation and mapping functions.
Well, you're giving it breathing room.
You're giving it breathing room. Time to isolate the distinct sounds like separating a rapid T sound from the do sound, or hearing the vowel difference between ship and sheep before the next word comes rushing in. You are deliberately prioritizing accuracy of recognition over speed of comprehension.
Accuracy first, then speed.
Always. And to address your concern about dependency, you use the slow speed for intensive listening practice. When you're trying to master a difficult section or acquire a new phrase, once you feel comfortable at 0.75x, you just nudge it up to 0.9x.
And then eventually to full speed.
Exactly. Then to native speed. You're building muscle memory for sound recognition at a manageable pace. It makes that final jump to full speed much less stressful because the conceptual processing part is already effortless. You know what the words mean.
So slowing down is a deliberate training strategy. It's not a permanent crutch.
That is the perfect way to put it.
That reframes it entirely for me. It's not about weakness. It's about optimizing the environment for acquisition. And that whole concept of ease and non-frustration, it extends directly to our fourth foundational tip, which is all about duration. Tip 4, use short clips, not long ones.
Yes. The sources strongly advise against trying to force yourself to understand a 30-minute video or a full-length movie, especially when you're starting out.
That's just too much.
It's way too much. The advice is to start with something brief, 1 or 2 minutes, a short YouTube clip, a single scene from a show.
Okay.
And the strategic maneuver here is to repeat that short clip until it feels completely, utterly comfortable.
Let's connect the efficiency gain here. Why is repeating a 2-minute clip 5 times better than just listening to one 10-minute clip one time?
It all comes down to cognitive energy and the confidence boost.
Okay.
Think about it. If you listen to a long 10-minute segment and you only grasp, say, 20% of it, which is really typical for a new level, you've just spent 80% of your time feeling lost.
Discouraged.
Totally discouraged and mentally exhausted by the sheer volume of unknown information. You walk away from that session feeling like a failure, which then attacks your intrinsic motivation we just talked about in tip 2.
It's a downward spiral.
It is. Now, conversely, take that 2-minute clip. The first time you listen, maybe you get 40%. The second time, you already know the topic, so you jump to 60%.
Ah, I see.
By the third and fourth passes, especially if you're using some of the other techniques we're about to discuss, you can get to 90 or even 100% comprehension on that one small piece.
And that feeling of mastery.
That feeling of mastery, that you totally conquered a specific unit of language, it signals real, tangible progress to your brain. It reinforces the daily habit from tip 1.
So short, slowed down, repeated clips?
They provide the maximum depth of processing in the minimum amount of time. You truly master a segment rather than just surviving a flood of information.
I love that. Master a segment, don't just survive the flood. So just to recap, we're building the foundation, 10 minutes daily for consistency, content we love for sustainability, slowed down for acoustic recognition, and short, repeated clips for mastery and confidence. That sets the stage beautifully for the active work. All right, so now we move past those structural habits and into the specific, powerful techniques that turn that slowed down short clip into really active, engaged learning.
Right.
These next 2 tips are, from what I can tell, pretty significant cognitive shortcuts. They force a really strong linguistic connection.
They do. This is where we bridge the gap between just, recognizing a sound and truly comprehending the meaning behind it. And we do it by leveraging the most overlooked tool that everyone has.
Which is?
Text, the subtitles.
Ah, okay. Let's jump into that with tip 5. Read the subtitles first. The core method here seems really simple. Read and understand the text completely. Know the narrative, know the vocabulary, and then you listen again, but without the subtitles.
Yes. And this simple switch generates that guaranteed, uh-huh, moment the source describes. The quote is, "You'll hear more than before, like switching on a small light in your mind."
I like that image.
It's not magic, though. It's the science of linguistic priming.
Okay, break down that mechanism for us. What is priming? Why does reading the text before you hear it fundamentally change the acoustic experience on that second pass?
Okay, so when you listen to English cold with zero context, your brain is under incredible stress.
Right.
It's trying to do three really hard things at once. It's segmenting the sound. It's retrieving the meaning of each word. And it's trying to build the overall narrative all simultaneously. It's a huge cognitive load.
And if you hit a word you don't know,
The whole chain breaks.
Yeah.
If you had a word like, say, conscientious, which you might know visually from reading but I've never actually heard pronounced, your brain just panics and the whole listening process stalls while you try to figure it out.
in there.
We all have. But pre-reading, it completely removes that high-stress comprehension task. The semantics, the meaning, and the context are already stored in your brain. You know what's coming.
So when you listen the second time,
Your auditory system can just relax. It can focus purely on one job, linking the acoustic signal, the sound, to the concepts you already know.
that makes so much sense.
And it's particularly effective for recognizing those common English sound reductions we talked about.
Like gonna and shoulda.
Exactly. If you read the subtitles and see, "I should have gone," your brain expects to hear 3 full distinct words. But then when you listen, you hear, "I should have gone."
Ah, and because you already know the meaning?
Because the meaning is already known, your brain can now successfully match that compressed, linked sound shoulda to the established written phrase. It provides this immediate, powerful, aha evidence of the phonetic rules of spoken English. The sound just clicks into place with the concept that's already in your memory.
So instead of using the difficult auditory input to discover the meaning, you're using the auditory input to confirm a meaning you already possess.
Yes, that's it.
Wow, that eliminates like 90% of the cognitive stress. It accelerates that acoustic mapping process. That really is a shortcut.
It is the ultimate shortcut. It forces acoustic recognition without the stress of comprehension. You're not searching for a known treasure in the dark. You're just confirming a map you already hold in your hand.
It validates over and over what fluent speech actually sounds like in reality, not in a textbook.
Every single time.
That leads perfectly into our next active engagement technique, which is tip 6, shadow the speaker. Now, this one seems far more intense. It feels like it requires a lot of focus.
Shadowing is definitely intense, but it's intensely rewarding. The core method is simple to describe. It's simultaneous listening and repeating. You're tracking the speaker as closely as you possibly can, like a real-time echo.
You're using your voice to trace the contours of the language you're hearing.
That's a great way to put it, tracing the contours.
Now, the sources really stress that perfection is not the goal here. The goal is to follow the rhythm, the music of the language. Why is the music, the intonation, the stress, the rhythm, why is that so central to improving listening comprehension specifically?
Because shadowing bridges this massive cognitive gap between your passive receptive skill, which is listening, and your active productive skills, which is speaking.
Okay.
It literally links the auditory input directly to your motor output. When you force yourself to repeat the sound while the sound is still entering your ears, you're compelling your brain to process the speech stream and its rhythm in real time. There's no time to stop and think.
You have to keep up.
You have to. And, English comprehension relies so heavily on predicting what's coming next and recognizing where the speaker is placing emphasis.
Right.
Fluent English is a stress-timed language. That means certain words, the content words like nouns and verbs, are stressed and they're clear, while other words, the function words like articles and prepositions, are reduced and unstressed. They get swallowed.
The store becomes the store.
Exactly. Shadowing trains your mouth, your tongue, and your vocal cords to physically produce those same stress patterns and reductions.
So by physically reproducing the music of the language, I'm actually sensitizing my ear to that music.
Precisely.
If I practice stressing the important words myself, I'll be better at spotting them when someone else is speaking to me.
That's it. You internalize the natural flow, the rise and fall of the voice, the pauses, the links, the same way a musician practices scales to understand melody. This practice accelerates your processing speed significantly. Because when you encounter that rhythm, again, in general listening, your brain retrieves it immediately. Why? Because it's now stored in your kinesthetic memory, your muscle memory, not just as an abstract auditory memory.
It's in your body.
It's in your body.
Yes.
It moves the knowledge from this conscious, oh, I have to remember this rule, understanding to an automatic physical recognition.
That's fascinating. So if someone is brand new to shadowing, what's the best way to start? Should they just, dive into a full, fast conversation?
Absolutely not. That would be a recipe for frustration.
Right.
You start small, you build on tip 4, take your 1-minute clip, slow it down using tip 3, and for the first few tries, focus only on matching the rhythm and intonation. Don't even worry about getting the individual words right.
So you're just kind of humming the tune of the sentence.
Exactly. You're humming the tune. Start with your volume just comfortable enough, maybe a quiet echo just beneath the main speaker. Once you can follow that tune of the sentence comfortably at the slower speed, then you can slowly attempt the full native pace. The goal is flow, not pronunciation perfection. This is about training your ears through your mouth.
Okay, so we've built the foundational habits and we've mastered these 2 really powerful active engagement techniques. Now we need to shift gears a little bit and focus on the mindset.
The psychology of it all.
Exactly, the mindset necessary for long-term, psychological success. This section is all about managing expectations and really embracing the reality of the global English environment.
And these next few tips, they directly address the anxiety that so often acts as the biggest barrier for learners.
The thing that makes people quit.
The very thing. We need to transition the learner's mindset from the neat, tidy, structured environment of a textbook to the complex, messy, varied reality of real-world communication.
Let's tackle that reality first with tip 7. Listen to many different voices. The core advice here seems absolutely critical. Do not depend on only one teacher or one accent.
It's so important. The sources use that beautiful imagery we mentioned before. The world speaks English in many colors.
Yeah.
And if a learner trains exclusively on one single clear voice, maybe that standardized North American accent you hear in a lot of learning materials, or even just one podcast host.
Guilty.
They become brilliant at understanding that one person. But the real world is a massive spectrum of sound.
That is so true.
If you travel, if you engage in international business, you're going to encounter rapid speech, different regional accents from the UK, Australia, South Africa, different tones, non-native speakers who speak English perfectly fluently, but with their own unique rhythm patterns.
And if your comprehension is brittle because it's only based on that one acoustic profile,
you will panic. The moment you hear a new accent, say a strong Irish English or Indian English, your brain just freezes up because it hasn't learned the phonetic flexibility it needs to decode the core meaning that lies underneath all that variation.
So what we're really doing here is training for phonetic robustness.
That's a great term for it.
But what's the practical strategy here? Should a beginner just immediately dive into the thickest Scottish accent they can possibly find on YouTube?
That might be a little too much too soon. A bit of a shock to the system.
Right.
The strategy is gradual diversification. Once you've mastered a short clip using one voice, find a similar clip on the exact same topic, but delivered by a different speaker with a slightly different accent.
Okay, so same topic, different voice.
Yes, that controls the variables. And use the same tools we've already discussed. Slow it down if you need to, read the subtitles first. You are forcing your brain to recognize that the vowel A can sound like A1 or A2 or A3 and still mean the exact same thing.
You're building a more flexible template in your mind.
A much more flexible, resilient template. It's crucial for avoiding that reliance on one singular, perfect acoustic delivery. It prepares you for the chaotic, beautiful reality of global communication.
That makes perfect sense. Diversity builds robustness. Okay, now let's talk about what might be the most liberating piece of advice in this entire deep dive. The one that combats listening anxiety head on.
Yes.
Tip 8. Don't try to understand every word.
It's probably the most difficult, but also the most necessary mindset shift a learner has to make.
I can see that.
The sources all prioritize understanding the overall idea, the gist, the context, over catching every single word. And they offer this powerful reassurance. Missing words is completely normal. Your brain, quote, will fill the gaps.
Okay, that idea that the brain will fill the gaps, that's where we need to spend some time. We are so conditioned from school, I think, to believe that missing a word is a failure, a red X on the test.
Right.
But the sources are saying it's actually a key part of fluency. How does our brain actually manage to fill in those informational gaps?
So this takes us into a really interesting distinction between what's called bottom-up processing and top-down processing.
Okay.
Bottom-up processing is what beginners do. They're painstakingly trying to parse every single sound, building meaning from the ground up, word by painful word. It's slow, it's exhausting, and it's so easily derailed.
One unknown word and the whole thing collapses.
the whole Jenga tower falls over. Fluent listeners, however, they rely heavily on top-down processing.
Which is?
It's using context.
Yeah.
Once they know the general topic, the conversation's about banking, for instance, their brain immediately starts anticipating all the related vocabulary. Words like account, interest, mortgage, loan.
So it's already got a list of probable words ready to go.
It does. So if you miss a low-frequency adjective, say, the speaker says something about a fiduciary duty, but you caught the verb, the subject, and the overall narrative. Your brain uses that powerful context to infer what that missing word probably meant.
Or it realizes it wasn't that important.
Or, crucially, it realizes that that specific word isn't essential for understanding the main point. It just lets it go.
Wow.
Trying to catch every single word forces you into this intensive, syllable-by-syllable focus. And that is incredibly tiring. Cognitive fatigue sets in almost immediately, and it slows your processing down so much that you fall behind and end up missing the overall meaning anyway.
So it's counterproductive.
Completely. Trusting your brain to infer meaning based on context isn't laziness. It's a sign of efficiency. It's a sign of improving fluency. You're engaging with the language holistically, just like a native speaker does.
That is truly, truly liberating because it grants the learner permission to just relax, to trust the flow. Which leads us perfectly to tip 10, and we're moving this tip up in the order because its relationship with comprehension and tension is just so immediate.
It's a perfect follow-up.
Tip 10, relax while listening.
This is the ultimate antidote to the pressure that comes from feeling like you have to follow tip 8. The core principle is so profound and yet so often overlooked. When your body is tense, your ears close. When you are calm, you hear more.
So what's the actionable step?
It's so simple. Take a deep breath, physically sit back in your chair, and let the language flow over you.
I want to tie this directly to language acquisition research because this feels familiar. This idea that anxiety physically blocks learning. Is this what researchers call the effective filter?
Absolutely. We are talking directly about the effective filter hypothesis.
Okay, tell us about that.
This is a concept that was popularized in second language acquisition theory, and it suggests that our emotional states, things like stress, anxiety, self-doubt, they create this kind of mental barrier or a filter. And that filter literally prevents linguistic input from reaching the parts of the brain that are responsible for language acquisition.
So it's like a gatekeeper.
A very effective one. When you feel stressed, your body activates the fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your fine motor skills get impaired, and complex cognitive tasks like, say, decoding new or difficult foreign language sounds are immediately deprioritized by the survival mechanism of the brain.
Your brain thinks there's a tiger in the room. It doesn't care about verb conjugations.
It could not care less.
Yeah.
That physical tension, the squinting, the leaning forward, that frantic internal self-talk of, I don't understand, it's not helping. It is actively filtering out the very language you're trying so hard to acquire.
So the pressure to understand every word from tip 8
Yes.
is a direct cause of the tension, which in turn activates the effective filter from tip 10, which then makes your comprehension even worse.
It is a perfect self-defeating loop powered entirely by anxiety.
Yeah.
That's the loop we have to break by consciously choosing to relax, to sit back, to remind yourself, I don't need to catch every word. My brain will fill the gaps. You dramatically lower that filter.
A calm listener is a receptive listener.
That's the mantra. If you start a listening session and you're already feeling tense or you're focused on past failures, just stop. Take 30 seconds to just breathe. This fundamental physiological intervention is just as crucial for your success as any linguistic drill.
It completely redefines what success is. Success isn't catching every single word. Success is maintaining a state of calm, receptive flow and just allowing the language to enter without the barrier of fear. Okay, we've established a foundation, we've engaged actively, and we've mastered the mindset. Now we have to tackle the final, and I'd say indispensable, phase of this whole process.
Making it stick.
Making it all stick. This is where all that wonderful low-stress input actually becomes permanent vocabulary and a permanent skill.
Right, because input without consolidation is just
Right.
fleeting. It's temporary. You might understand something in the moment, but if you don't have a deliberate retention strategy, it just vanishes by the next day.
So this brings us to tip 9, keep a listening notebook.
To the notebook.
But this isn't just about collecting every single unfamiliar word you hear. The sources are very, very specific about being selective.
Yes.
The advice is, write down new words you hear often. And critically, focus on the useful ones, not every single esoteric new word you come across.
That selectivity is the core insight for efficiency. It's so important. If a learner is disciplined and they're using those short, repeatable clips from tip 4, they will inevitably encounter some words and phrases multiple times.
Just by the nature of repetition.
Exactly. They'll hear it in that one session or maybe across several sessions in a week. Those are the words you want to capture.
Because trying to write down and look up every single unknown word.
Oh, it defeats the entire low-stress strategy we just built.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. If you hear a word only one time, say a very specific medical term or a historical name, it might not be high frequency. It might not be relevant to your daily communication goals at all.
So you just let it go.
You let it go.
Yeah.
But if you hear a word or a phrase 3 times in 1 week across different videos or podcasts, that is a clear signal.
That this one matters.
This one is high frequency, it's relevant, it's part of the general lexicon. That's the one that goes in the notebook.
So the listening notebook isn't a junk drawer. It's a highly curated collection. It acts as a prioritized filter, making sure we only spend our precious review time on the vocabulary that's going to give us the highest return on our effort.
Exactly. It moves you beyond just passive recognition to deliberate, prioritized acquisition. Now, we should talk about the practical application of the notebook because just writing the word down is only half the battle.
Right. What are the best practices for actually using this notebook beyond just transcription?
Okay, so once you've captured that high-frequency word, you have to use it to cement it into your memory. First rule, always write down the context.
The full sentence.
The full sentence, or at least the phrase where you heard it. This anchors the word to its natural usage, rather than just some abstract dictionary definition. Context is everything. Second, you need a powerful review cycle. The sources suggest reviewing your notebook once a week. This is where the magic of spaced repetition happens.
Spaced repetition.
Yeah. A word that you hear today, and then you review it tomorrow, and then maybe you review it again in 3 days, and then you review it weekly. That word is being aggressively moved from your fragile short-term memory into your robust long-term memory storage.
You're telling your brain over and over, this one is a keeper.
You are. And during that weekly review, it's really important not to just passively read your list of words.
You have to do something with them.
You have to turn that input into active output. Create a simple flashcard system, if that works for you, digital or physical. Put the word on one side and the contextual sentence on the back, and then, and this is the key, force yourself to create 3 completely new sentences using that vocabulary item.
Oh, I like that. So you have to apply it immediately.
Immediately. This active retrieval practice is what ensures that the vocabulary is integrated into your productive skills, your speaking and writing, not just sitting passively in your receptive skills.
So the notebook isn't a passive archive. It's not a word museum. It's a launch pad for active application and long-term retention.
A launch pad. I love that.
It's designed to reinforce every single gain you've made during those low-stress listening sessions. That cycle it solidifies the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
So this deep dive has given us an incredibly clear, really actionable roadmap. It demonstrates that the most effective path to language mastery is, it seems, often the one that just embraces simplicity and patience.
It really is.
We've distilled a robust 10-point plan, and the core philosophy behind it all is, well, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
We have to remove tension and optimize our learning environment.
That is the central takeaway. At the end of the day, if you are leaving your listening sessions feeling exhausted and frustrated, you're just applying too much tension. Yeah. Something is wrong with the process. You have to actively go back and implement the mindset shifts we talked about. Remember that using slow speed is a deliberate growth strategy. It's not a failure.
That's tip 3.
Exactly. And that choosing enjoyment over difficulty, with tip 2, is a non-negotiable sustainability strategy.
And maybe most liberating of all, you have to give yourself permission to just relax, to sit back like in tip 10, and to trust your incredible brain to fill in the gaps when you miss a word. That was tip 8.
Yes.
That central reminder from the source material is so potent and so necessary. Improving your listening is not a race. It's a slow, steady climb. You have to celebrate the small wins, that moment you finally recognize a link sound like gona in the wild, or that feeling of flow you get when you're shadowing and you keep up for a whole sentence.
Those are the moments that fuel you. You can start right now with those foundational habits.
Yeah.
10 minutes a day of content you genuinely love, slowed down just enough until it feels comfortable.
And then immediately move to active engagement.
Immediately. Use the subtitles first. Leverage that cognitive priming to get those aha moments. And please, don't let those hard-won vocabulary items just disappear. Use that listening notebook for selective, frequent review.
Okay, so building on that core idea that tension is the enemy and that you have to make room for the flow of language, here's a provocative closing thought for you to carry forward.
I like it.
Which counterproductive habit are you going to stop doing starting today?
Oh, that's a good one. Are you going to stop the frantic habit of pausing and looking up every single word, which just fractures the rhythm and induces stress?
Or are you going to stop the guilt of not having 2 hours free for study, which stops you from even starting?
Yes. Stop that self-criticism. Instead, just embrace the variety of the world's accents. Trust that your brain, when it's calm and it's consistently fed, will do the heavy lifting of acquisition for you.
The knowledge is now in your hands. Apply these techniques immediately. Keep your ears open, keep them relaxed, and enjoy every single step of the climb. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.